Good afternoon, you wee bastards, and welcome back to another War Thunder devlog video with Koala. Today, it's Britain again, because Britain's finally getting a top tier tank. Now this one's going to be a bit ranty, and if you're not interested in listening to that, I completely understand. I'm going to go on a little bit here at GAIJIN. I guess this makes up for the little bit of bootlicking I did last video, but if you're not interested in listening to a rant from me, I perfectly understand. Just click away from the video. Just, if you're continuing to watch, understand that that's what it's going to be. This is looking like a huge missed opportunity here. So we knew this was coming. The Challenger 1 Mark 3 is coming to War Thunder, or the Challenger 2 as GAIJIN says on the devlog. I found it funny that GAIJIN re-edited this sentence of the devlog to make sure it read correctly, the Challenger Mark 2, but then the very next sentence they said the revered Challenger 2, which is not what this is. We don't have a Challenger 2, we've never had a Challenger 2, this isn't going to be a Challenger 2, we had a Challenger 1 Mark 2, we're getting a Challenger 1 Mark 3. We knew this was coming from the M60A1 Ariete devlog, where GAIJIN had accidentally named the tank Challenger Mark III. We knew this was coming because the Challenger has been suffering since patch 1.77, and to be perfectly honest, this is the tank we should have gotten all along. However, maybe patch 1.79, I don't know. This is going to be a separate tank, it's not going to be a modification, it's not changing the Mark II into a Mark III. This is going to be a whole new 390,000 RP tank. For what? ERA and composite side skirts that can't even stop a BT5. Yeah. This annoys me. This... Look, I'm perfectly fine us getting a new vehicle. This is great. We're getting something new. Britain's getting a top tier tank, but this is not enough, GAIJIN. I'm pleased that we're getting something. I've wanted to see this in game for a long time, but we need a little more than this. See, the thing is, GAIJIN said in their devblog that the Challenger Mark III will have the same armor. There's no changes to the armor profile, there's nothing different on the hull, the turret, the sides, doesn't matter. Nothing has changed. The same shells, which means we're still getting APDS stock grind at 10.0 or 9.7. I'm not sure whether the Mark III is gonna go at 10.0, I would say it's likely, and it probably should. We're not getting any more powerful shells to end up with the tank, so we're not getting L26 Jericho. This is my biggest problem here. We're not getting a new engine or transmission, the tank is still going to be the slowest thing at top tier. We're not getting a quicker reload. What we're getting is the exact same tank with some ERA for a little bit of protection against helicopters. Although, funnily enough, there's no ERA on the top of the tank where helicopters are likely going to be hitting you, so yeah, it's not going to matter. We're getting composite side skirts, which, like I said, cannot even stop 45mm AP rounds. They were only built to stop machine gun rounds and maybe RPGs. Most of the explosive reactive armor is going onto the lower front plate, which means you may bounce a shell if the armor acts a little trolly like ERA in this game is likely to do, but mostly this is going to be the exact same tank. The Challenger 1 Mark II is not a tank that is terrible. It's bad, but it's not terrible. It's usable at the very least. It has a very good gun, one of the worst reloads for its tier, definitely the slowest speed and worst mobility for its tier, besides maybe the T64B in lateral mobility, the T64B not having neutral steering. I'm predicting this still being the worst tank at top tier, because all it's going to get is ERA to protect it, maybe from the first ATGM a helicopter fires at you. The other difference is the armoured storage bins for the ammunition, so you might survive a shot to the ammo, you won't detonate quite as easily. That's all well and good, I'm pleased we're getting that, but we're not getting L26, and this bugs me to hell and back. Let me put it this way, the Challenger currently does not struggle with penetration. It doesn't have enough to get through the Leopard 2's cheeks, the Type 90's cheeks, it won't get through the most heavily armoured parts of these tanks. And I know someone's going to say, do you want top tier to be a point and click, just click first, shells penetrating every armor and armor not mattering at all in the slightest, where no one even has to aim for weak spots because every shell can penetrate every tank? And no, I'm not saying I want that, but the Challenger is a tank that is highly specialized. It lacks mobility like you wouldn't believe, especially when it doesn't even get neutral steering when stock. It lacks its maneuverability and mobility, it doesn't have a great reload, it's actually one of the slowest reloads for its tier, and well, if you're reloading a Challenger gun that slowly in real life, you're going to have some pretty angry commanding officers looking at you. It's a hold-down defensive tank in a game that actively punishes that style of gameplay, and at least from now you're going to be able to survive a helicopter shot, maybe. But it's a tank that is designed to make use of uniquely high firepower, and it's not getting it. Now, is that because L26 Jericho would just be overpowered, too much for the game right now? No. Not even close. Actually, L26 Jericho has a full 80mm less flat penetration than JM33, 40mm less flat penetration than OFL 120G1, which is the AMX-40's shell at 9.7. This isn't even a top tier shell. This is the AMX-40 at 9.7's top shell, and it has 500mm of penetration. Now I know that's because there's no other APDS or APFSDS it could have. There's no alternatives for the Type 90 either. It didn't use anything but JM33, so it has to have that level of penetration. But it just means that we're not dealing with shells that are overpowered, that are too good right now, because L26 Jericho, fired from the Challenger 1's L11A5 gun, the same gun we're getting on the Mk.3 variant, there's no change to the tank at all, has 460mm flat penetration. And so those people that are saying, do you want armor not to matter at all? It doesn't matter for these guys. It doesn't matter for this guy, this guy, this guy, or this guy. But for these two, yeah, no, it has to matter there, right? These two have to aim for weak spots. Now for the Abrams, that's perfectly fine, because the Abrams is the best tank in the game, even without the penetration that other tanks of its tier have. But the Challenger needs to have high firepower comparative to its contemporaries. That's the whole point of it. It's a weapon that's basically designed to be a stationary gun. Having a shell that could penetrate the Leopard 2A4 Type 90's turret, a shell that could penetrate the T-64B's turret, that's not overpowered. That's the one benefit the tank is supposed to have. It's bad for getting to spots. It's slow to get to the right spots. It's very specialized. It's very unique. You have to use it in a very strict way. But once you do get it into those situations, you should be able to have a field day. That's the point of the tank. But the Challenger Mk.3 that we're getting, which will likely be a 10.0 because it is an improvement over the Mark II, is not going to get this shell. It's going to stick with L23A1 with 415mm of flat penetration. That is tied for the lowest penetrating top tier shell on a tank that lacks the mobility of everything else in its tier, besides the T-64B, which it just about matches. It's ever so slightly faster in forward over certain terrain. It's much faster in reverse, but not as fast in traversing. It's also not as fast in reload, that being something else that makes the Type 90 and Abrams so goddamn good. Might be time to fix the Abrams shells now, GAIJIN, don't you think? The Challenger Mk.3 would be a great tank if it did have this uniquely high firepower, because it would be a struggle to get it to the right places. It would still be a strict playstyle vehicle, but it would have the firepower to take out anything it comes up against, and that would make it worth playing. But right now, we're not getting that. We're getting standard firepower on a tank that is not standard in any other regard. It's worse. So everything else is lower than standard, and firepower is just about on par, if not slightly below average as well. Someone play the clip.
This was gonna be so beautiful.
There is no reason for us not to get L26 Jericho in this tank. The AMX-40 has a shell with 40 more millimeters of penetration at a battle rating step lower than the top, which this tank could definitely be at if it has this shell, and the Type 90 at 10.0 not only has a lot of speed on this thing, a great reload on this thing, and it has a full 80 millimeters more penetration. And it's not overpowered. Someone's going to bring up the Type 90's low survivability, and I'm going to say, yes, but it has speed. It doesn't have to get hit. It doesn't need to rely on surviving a shot. With the Challenger, you're going to get hit. You need to be able to survive. And the armor is fine. The problem being that the Challenger fights other NATO vehicles where the shells are specifically optimized to penetrate angled armor and so go through the Challenger's turret like butter. Now, the tank we're getting looks sexy, it looks fantastic, and I'm probably still going to play it, but I'm holding on to the hope that GAIJIN will A, remove that APDS stock grind, give us L23 stock at least. You can leave APDS on the tank if you like, but at least give us an APFSDS shell stock, L23. Have L23A1 as the mid-tier upgrade, the tier 2, and then give us L26 Jericho as the tier 4. That gives us firepower almost on par in flat penetration to the T-64B at 9.7, still subpar to the AMX-40 at 9.7, and still very subpar to the Type 90 at 10.0. Oh, and if you're thinking Koala, doesn't the L26 Jericho and all British shells have a ton of angled penetration? No. The angled penetration, or the LOS penetration at 60 degrees for the L26 shell is only 510mm. Compare this to the Type 90's Mk.3, with an LOS penetration of 625mm. That's enough to go through the turret of the Challenger 2, and I'm talking about the 1990s, late 90s Challenger 2 main battle tank that is still fielded today. This is not an overpowered shell. Why is GAIJIN so afraid of it? I don't get it. I don't get it.
Don't get it.
And of course it looks to GAIJIN like the Challenger doesn't need any more help, because GAIJIN looks at win rates, and America is currently stomping, dragging the 1 or 2 Challengers per match along with them. But that doesn't mean that the Challenger is one of the reasons for this high performance. It's actually bringing every single other team down. The less British you have on your team at top tier, the better. That shouldn't be a case. Problem with doing things this way as well is that GAIJIN giving us the Mark II and the Mark III without actually changing anything right now means that we're not going to get the Mark I, as I suggested in my Challenger video. Now, the Challenger Mark II is only just good enough for 9.7. It does have a very good gun. I think giving us the Challenger 1 Mark I, which would only have L23 as its top shell, not L23A1, the top shell for the Challenger Mark II right now. This only has 410mm of penetration, and I think it would make for a good 9.3. Move the Chieftain Mark X down to 9.0, move the Chieftain Mark V down to 8.3 alongside the Mark III, and we've got ourselves a good top tier. But if GAIJIN opts to add the Mark III as a completely separate vehicle as well as the Mark II, they can't take away L23A1 and turn the tank into a Challenger Mark I, because GAIJIN has said over and over again they're never ever going to remove anything that people have paid real money for. And that's something that I guarantee you people have done for the L23A1. The Challenger stock grind is one of the worst in the game, and it is one of the worst tanks in the game for its own tier. And I'm going to have a ton of people in the comments telling me, well, I do well enough in the Challenger Mark II right now, I can go out into a battle and get 6 kills because I play with tactics, I play it smart, I play it how it's meant to be, and I can get a few kills, I can rack up some points easily. Yes, so can I. But we are players who've been playing the game for 6 goddamn years. An average player is not going to do that. The Challenger performs well for players that would perform well anyway. It's a tank for the people that already know how to play a bad tank. Those same people that can take a Challenger into top tier and get 6 kills, they're the same people that could take an M18 Hellcat to top tier and get 6 kills. And trust me, I've done it. That doesn't make the Hellcat a 10.0 tank. Honestly, it just feels like GAIJIN hates Britain. But that couldn't be the case, right? I mean, it's Germany that struggles. Oh, that's a point, actually. If we added L26 Jericho, the Leopard 2A4 would be penetrated by it. Oh no, we can't have that. We can't have Germany struggling now, can we? Actually, Germany does already struggle because American teams are so goddamn strong. I'm sorry, German players, but you guys complain a lot. You can see why I say you're crying wolf right now, right? We good? Thank you. So guys, basically the Challenger Mark III is going to be Britain's top tier tank. Most nations are getting something new for top tier. Russia got the T-80B. I'm sure Germany will get something soon. Italy might end up getting the C1 Ariete, but I doubt it, because GAIJIN seems really hesitant about upping the tiers further. So guys, the Challenger 1 Mark III is going to be Britain's top tier tank. Yes, it gets armoured storage bins. Yes, it gets composite side skirts that might protect you from some SPAA. Maybe. Probably only the Shilka. That's all you're going to defend against. It gets explosive reactive armour to protect it from helicopters. And it gets some good looking skins. But besides that, this is going to be nothing. This is going to be 390,000 RP earned in top tier Britain, no less, which is one of the worst nations to play for actual earnings right now. And it's not going to be any more competitive than the tank we have. Maybe sometimes you will survive the first shot without being as crippled as you would currently. But when you're fighting against the things, you're not going to notice any change. And when you're driving out the things, you're not going to get more kills, you're not going to do more, you're not going to be more competitive. I'm sorry, but the Challenger is just not a competitive design in War Thunder. Perhaps I am a little bit biased towards Britain, and I did say this would be a bit of a rant video, but God, I really hope GAIJIN rescinds this decision and gives us L26 for the Challenger Mark III. Also, fix your goddamn dev blog, GAIJIN. For God's sake, this is not a Challenger 2, we've never had a Challenger 2. This is a Challenger 2 Our tank has never been one, we're not getting one. Stop saying we're getting a Challenger 2, we're not. Ay ay ay. You fixed it once, but it was mistaken twice in there. It's not that difficult. It's one word. Gaijin Entertainment. They made all this. They can count to 2 without messing up somewhere in between. I'm sorry, that was a bit harsh. That was a bit too much. I am thankful we're getting this tank, and I'm probably going to play it. It looks fantastic. I'm glad we're getting something at top tier. But I had hoped that it would be more of a step up, because God knows the Challenger needs more of a step up than what we're getting. L26, well, like I said, we don't lack for penetration already, but it would make its job a little easier, and its job in War Thunder right now is pretty goddamn difficult. The Challenger needs all the help it can get, and right now L26 is not going to break anything. Yes, it's going to mean armor is a little less viable, but armor isn't the meta anyway. The Challenger though is a hold-down defensive weapon designed to fight enemies front-on at long range. Giving it a shell that could penetrate the Leopard 2A4's turret cheeks up to around a kilometer, yeah, that's going to help it out a lot. A little bit of explosive reactive armor, however, on the lower portions of the tank where ATGMs don't generally hit you anyway, yeah, not gonna help us out here, Gaijin. This isn't enough. This is not enough. I don't understand Gaijin's trepidation about adding L26 Jericho, and yes, I'm sure you guys will say, well, didn't the Challenger only carry like 6 of them? Yes, it did, but it didn't have to. And people have said that if we get L26 in game, well, 6 shells is going to be a very big hamper, but there's no reason we would be limited to 6 shells. Challengers in real life only carried 6 of these shells because they were still experimental at the time and only for emergency use against the potential of seeing T-72Ms in the Gulf Wars. Challengers never came across T-72Ms, and they knew that the main tanks they'd be fighting were T-62s and T-55s, so of course they only used the shells which were cheaper, easier to get a hold of, and weren't top secret technology for the time, likely to fall into the hands of the enemy if they missed and plunged one into the sand. These shells were fired though, by a couple of Challenger tanks. It might have been only once that these shells were actually fired, but I know that they were used on at least one occasion. So there'd be no reason not to give them to us. As for limiting our ammo storage, maybe if Gaijin fears that L26 would be too imbalanced, but once again, neither its flat penetration nor angled penetration even come close to matching the AMX-40 shell, and the AMX-40 is a battle rating lower than the top. The Challenger Mark 3 without L26 definitely does not deserve to be 10.0. It's still not going to compete with the Abrams, it's still not going to be a competitive design for War Thunder. But giving it L26 and putting it at 10.0 would at least be understood and justified, if not giving us a competitive tank. Maybe we could get the Vickers Mark 7. I think that might be a little bit too good for us right now though, mainly because of the gun options it could have if they decide to give it to us with the CN-120, the cannon from the Leclerc, the 120mm 52 caliber gun if I'm not mistaken. This could fire shells that would easily make the Vickers Mark 7 a 10.7 viable vehicle. Actually, it would perform very similar to an M1A1 Abrams. Maybe the Vickers Valiant, but I don't know if that would be high enough tier for us right now. Maybe that would be a 9.7, 9.3 even. The MBT-80 would not be any higher than 9.3. There's really not much else we can get besides the Challenger Mark 3. Even the Challenger 2 is really only a slight step above what we have so far. To put it into perspective, the Challenger 2 has 600mm of turret armor, where the Challenger 1 has around 500. The Challenger 2 has 500mm of hull armor, where the Challenger 1 has around 275, and no, nothing's changing about that hull armor on the Mark 3. And the L26A1 shell, the Charm 1, fired by the Challenger 2, which would likely be its stock shell in War Thunder, has around 470mm of penetration, maybe 475 at a pinch. The L27A1, the Charm 3 shell, has only around 510 to 530mm of penetration. That's flat, and it just surpasses the M33 against 60-degree angled armor, which the M33 or JM33 as we have it in game right now on the Type 90 has been shafted with its angled penetration. It should be around 310mm at 60 degrees, but instead it's displaying way lower than that. That's because the shell was going to be a little bit overpowered if Gaijin added that right now. But seeing as we've got it anyway, and a little bit shafted mind you, there's no reason we couldn't get L26 for the Challenger 1. Trust me when I say it would not be game breaking, it would not make the tank overpowered. It might help allied teams a little bit at top tier, and they definitely don't need helping right now, but I think what we need to think about is rebalancing the Abrams, and as I said before, fixing its shells, which the M774 has 55mm too much penetration, or more. Even M833 doesn't have 415mm of flat penetration. The FJ4B with the AGMs, this is one of the main imbalancing factors, as is the AH-1Z Viper being on the team, and a whole bunch of M2A4s that just rush the caps on triple gap games and spawn in their Vipers, and that's the game. So yes, GAIJIN looks at the win rates of challengers and says, they're doing pretty well right now. Doesn't really look like it needs helping, but yes it does. GAIJIN, play your game, play top tier tanks, play the challenger and tell me that you think it's balanced, because I guarantee you, even if you are lucky and even if you use it in the perfect circumstances and do rack up a bunch of kills, it has a lot harder time doing it than everything else at its tier. And people have talked about the Type 90's low survivability, the AMX-40's no composite armor, and apparently it's not quite as mobile as the other tanks. However, when I played it back in a few months ago, it certainly was. People have said that they're not the best, but the Challenger is still a step below. The Challenger Mk.3 will likely be better at 10.0 than the T80B. However, the T80B has 475mm flat penetration. You can get through an Abrams turret cheek at any less than 600 meters. Give the Challenger the same power, GAIJIN. Give the Challenger the uniquely high firepower it needs to fulfill its own role that it is forced into in this game. You can't use it as a brawler the way you use an Abrams or a Leopard 2 or a T80. You should at least be able to use it as a long-range, heavy firepower son of a bitch. Anyway lads, I hope you have enjoyed this video. It's been a bit ranty, but once again I am pleased that we're getting this tank at all. I really hope GAIJIN goes back on their decision not to give us L26. At least, please do not make us go through that APDS stock grind again, because boy, that was a challenge. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video lads, subscribe if you haven't already. We are trying to hit 10,000 by the end of this year, and I really think we have a good chance right now. Although we are a little bit behind on schedule, but guys, hit that subscribe button. If you disagree with this video, please let me know why. Once again, I know there's going to be people saying I do alright in the Challenger, and I don't do too badly in it. I mean, it's no Abrams, but it doesn't need to be. However, it doesn't have as good a time as any other tank at top tier, and it should. This is a tank that deserves respect, even if it's not a great design, especially for the type of game we have. Anyway, before I rabbit on anymore, thank you for watching this video lads. Come join me at all the links in the description below. Come join me on Discord. Let me know your thoughts on everything I've said here in the description. Comments, guys. Bagpipes. Kill. Yeah, see you next time, lads. I say a wee thank you to these lads for supporting me on Patreon. Labvion Wolf, Gisli Arson, and Dark Recon. You lads are bra. If you wish to join them, come check out the link in the description below.